Well, good morning to the family of Grace Christian Ministries. And we were talking about prayer and what is the purpose, and that it is a privilege given to us by God through Jesus Christ, His Son, to speak to Him, and also to hear from Him. So good morning to you. I pray God is speaking to you and you're hearing from Him. Listen, you're not just talking to Him, but that you're also hearing from Him. It's important to understand what it is, this prayer, that you would speak to God and God would speak to us in our spirit. That we would not just do our 5-minute prayer and run away to work or wherever we're going, but that we would pray and wait for God to speak to us. You know, sometimes I just sit after praying to God and I give Him and I'm quiet. And as I'm still, I hear God speaking to my spirit. You see, that's how God communicates sometimes to us, through our spirits. Because He is the Spirit, He speaks to our spirit through His Word, through our conscience. And I pray that you are hearing God. See, you can't pray without understanding who God is through His Word. And now I'm not saying that quoting some scriptures, and that's what many people do. They quote some scriptures and thinking that's enough to get God to give them. But the truth is, it's about understanding who He is through the scriptures. You're praying out of your relationship with God. You know Him, He knows you. Christians make a lot of statements, and I think maybe we'll touch on that today. Christians deal with a lot of statements, and they make a lot of statements without understanding. One of the statements is, I believe in the power of prayer. And I don't say I disagree. Well, in that empty statement, sometimes maybe I do disagree, but I think it's too vague. I believe in the power of prayer. That means anybody can pray. But the truth is, I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, to whom I pray. I believe in God, to whom I pray. You see, I met a lot of people and they tell me they're passionate about prayer. They're passionate to go into their rooms and pray to God, and shout out to this God in the heavens. And sometimes I ask them, what do they mean by this passionate about prayer? Do you like the action of it, or do you like the posture of it, or the idea of it? What is this passion of, or this prayer? Rather than it is out of a relationship and a conversation with God. You see, many people can teach you the science of prayer, but not necessarily know God. Yeah, they can teach you 5 steps, how to do this, how to do that, but not necessarily know God, because we've understood that prayer is a simple talking to God. People say we must have faith, but I say to you that faith just means believe, rely, trust Him, and trust Him. That's what faith is. We make prayer and faith an object, but rather God is the object of our faith, and the object of our prayer is the goal and is the purpose of it. If ever we need to be clear in our words and actions, it is now. Especially when we are on social media. We can't have normal church service. Can't carry on in our traditional shouting and screaming and doing all the things that we used to do, especially on social media now, because the world is watching. Our message got to be clear. Got to be clear through the scriptures. So you see, in Matthew 5, Jesus is dealing with prayer, and we dealt with that last week, and how men should pray and how we should not pray. I think in verse 6 it's clear like this. It says, but you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut the door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place. Oh, I like that. Pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees you in the secret will reward you openly. What it means is, when the Father sees you in the secret place, where it's just you and Him, He'll reward you openly. I think for most of us, even in our corporate prayers, I think we must understand this, that we are still praying to the Father personally, even in our corporate. Even when we come together, we are still talking to God, and God is still hearing from us. He still sees us as an individual. even with our husband and our wife and our children around our prayer times in the night and seeking God's face, God is still listening to you personally. We call this the secret place, and I say it's the place of rest. You see, the secret place is only between you and God. You will never come to a place of rest until you come to the knowledge and understanding of who God is. You understand how He works, how He rules, how He reigns. And for most people, they have funny ideas, and so when sickness comes upon them, they bind the devil. And when tragedy hits their life, they bind the devil. They don't understand sometimes God is just using moments and trials in our life to speak to us. The knowledge and understanding of God shapes your entire life. In fact, you move in it and you live in that understanding of who God is. It shapes who you are. Too many people have ideas about God. They have their own interpretation and their own imagination of who He is. That's why their prayer is all warped. But we want to come to a place where we clearly define and understand who God is. I'm going to try to my best of my own understanding to preach to you today. You see, when we come to understand or come to the knowledge of who He is, then you will find peace. In fact, you will find the secret place, which is called rest. That's what the secret place is called. It's called rest. It's called this rest in your relationship with God. Rest in your understanding of God. See, the people in the wilderness for 40 years thought that their place of rest was Canaan. So they traveled and they tried to get there. They did not understanding that their rest was God all along. He was their rest. He was with them. They should have found their rest in Him. They thought it was a place, it was a location. And even in Canaan, when you read the story, you find that they did not even find rest there. They were restless. In the so-called promised land that they thought was a place of rest. Imagine being in the place of promise and still not being in rest, at rest. The secret place is not a physical location or amount of money or some external things. It is a place in God Himself. You see, that's what the Bible is saying, and Jesus is saying, He's saying, when you go into your room, when you pray, when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place. Wow. Who is in the secret place. You rest in His power, you rest in His control, you rest in His lordship, you rest in His sovereignty, which is His supreme power and authority over the whole earth. You rest in that nothing happens without His permission, and you rest out of that. It's called the secret place, the place of rest. This place Jesus understood, the place David understood, and we're going to go through that today. And the prophets understood this. Their conversation was out of this rest, out of this relationship, which is in rest in God. They understood God. In fact, Jesus prayed. He prayed. I like how He prays in, I think it's Matthew. We're going to get there. Actually, John chapter 11 verse 42. And he says this. He says, Jesus lifted up His eyes and said, Father, I thank You that You have heard me. Wow, I think we should pause there. If you can only feel the rest. I thank You that You have heard me. But hear the next part. He says, and I know that You always hear me. That You always hear me. But because of the people who are standing by, I said this, that they may believe that You have sent me. So I pray today through the scripture that you will pray out of that. See, Jesus knew the Father. When He goes in the morning on the mountain to talk to the Father, it's a secret place. Now it's not the mountain, remember? And it's not the morning. Although I wake up in the morning and pray because my children are asleep, it's the best time to be just alone with God and just to talk to Him with no big words, no vain repetitions. Just me and Him. You see, He knows you. Can't hide anything from Him. In fact, Elijah prayed the same way in 1 Kings chapter 18 verse 36. And if you hear the prayer, you will say, hold on. in this place of rest, everybody talks the same to God. It's like a common, you hear what he says. In fact, in 1 Kings 18:36, it is at the usual time for offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet walked up to the altar and prayed, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, prove today that you are God of Israel and that I am your servant. Prove that I have done all this at your command. He's talking, at this time he's praying. You know why he's praying? I think he's dealing with the prophets of Baal, the 400. And they finished sacrifice, they screamed to God, they cut themselves, they did whatever they could to get the attention of their God, which is no God at all. And hear how he prays now. He says in 1 Kings 18:37, he says, O Lord, answer me. Answer me so these people will know that you, O Lord, are God and that you have brought them back to yourself. You know what he's trying to say? I know you always answer me. I know I talk to you, you talk to me. But today I just want them to know who you are. I want them to know that you sent me. I want them to know that you hear me. Place of rest. This is a place of rest, a secret place which we call the place of rest. You see, we're dealing with prescribing and subscribing. When you prescribe to God, it is really getting what you want from Him. This is my list, God. Here it is. You said in your word, everything is rightfully mine, so you have to give it to me. You know, that's the prayer. But truly, we got to subscribe to God, which is really when you wait for Him. You submit to His will. You know that He knows what is best. He will do or either won't do because He knows what is best. Subscribe, the word sub, which means to come under, to fall under Him. Fall under, submit. So in prescribing, we use prayer as a way to get something for ourselves. We don't ask, rather we tell God. The Tower of Babel, when they tried to reach God, these people, they built this tower together to reach God, and God saw through their motives. In fact, they wanted to make a name for themselves. And so we thank God today that we are not making a name for ourselves. They use brick instead of stone, tar instead of mortar. They use their man-made materials to build a tower to reach God. You see, the man-made means they use their own way, their own means. It was what they wanted to use to reach God. It's commendable, but God sees right through our hearts. Right through to our hearts. He sees our true motives of our attitude in our hearts. You can't reach God by using what you want, in the ways you want it, when you want, how you want. You can't reach God like that. It's got to be His way, it's got to be His truth, and it's got to be through His life. We use our boss to get a paycheck. We use our children in our lives as they grow up and their pictures, and when they do well at school, to gain something for ourselves. We're proud of them, but sometimes we use it for ourselves. So we tell everybody, look what we've done, and look how well my child has done. And we use that. We husbands use their wives for intimacy. Wives use their husbands for security. We see Jacob manipulating his father his father Isaac, and then Laban manipulating Jacob to get for themselves. Then Jacob's wives manipulating Jacob to get what they want. They all wanted children, and one couldn't have, and one manipulated, and it was a great tragedy. Our friends are our friends because of what they bring into our lives. We use church as a means of a better life and some fellowship. Prayer is a means to get stuff, to have a better life. We see everybody is using something for a selfish intent. We use prayer as a form of manipulation to get from God what He has deemed as right for us. You see, what we have deemed what is right for us. We worked it out, and this is what we want. We prescribed it, we know it, this is what I want. And God, you got to give it to us. We put scriptures on our cars and on our shirts, and that's not the problem. But that can't be the way you get from God. So this is what it is to subscribe. To subscribe, it's when we wait for God and allow His will to be done. You see, when Elijah prayed, and he prayed, and he told Ahab no rain, and then he prayed again, and he went on the mountain and he waited for God, and he put his head between his legs, and he bowed his head, and he sent his servant to go and see if any indication. And his servant went and came back and said no, and then he bowed his head again and he prayed. He waited for God, and 7 times he sent his servant. And at the 7th time the servant came back and said, I see a cloud small as the fist of a man's hand. And Elijah woke up. He arose and he got ready, because that was a sign for him. See, all he was doing at that moment was praying, but he was waiting. He was subscribing to God. It's not Elijah's will, it's God's will. So the secret place is a relationship that only you and God have. It is a knowing God, but not just knowing God, but being known by God himself. When God wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, he says these words, which is so powerful, which I just warms my heart. He says this. He says, I'm going to destroy the city, but how can I not tell my servant Abraham? God said that. How can I not tell my servant Abraham? And so he tells Abraham the plans. And then Abraham tries to change it and says, Lord, it is 50. But the part that hits me, gives me peace at this moment is, God says this place. This is a secret place that Abraham had. A place of rest with God, where he talks to God and God talks to him and shares his heart. David was also known as the man after God's own heart. What we understand about this is that David knew God and his ways. He knew about consequences. When he disobeyed God, he knew the consequences and he accepted the consequences when he sinned against God. When David sinned by committing adultery with Bathsheba, the consequence was that the child that was born must die. That's a hard consequence. Nobody wants this. But I'll read to you in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 21 to 23, and we're just going to put some things into perspective today about this place of rest, this place of understanding, the secret place. And I'll read from verse 21. It says, his attendants asked him, why are you acting this way? While the child was alive, you fasted and wept. And that's what happened. And they couldn't interfere with him because he didn't eat. He just sat with sackcloth and he prayed and he wept before the Lord. And now that the child is dead, you get up and you eat. So he answered, while the child was still alive, I fasted and I wept. I thought, who knows? The Lord may be gracious to me and let the child live. Hey, he thought, well, hey, just in case, I know God and I know the consequences that, and God said so, that this child is going to die. But I thought, hey, at least I know God is gracious and let him do what he needs to do, but whatever it is. And then hear what he says here. He says, but now that he is dead, why should I go on fasting? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him. Yeah, how he knows God. He knows. But he will not return to me. You know what he's trying to say here? I have submitted to the will of God. Whatever it is, God took my child. I have submitted to that. And I can eat now at peace. They were shocked that he was at peace. This is called the place of rest. The secret place. See, when you have a place, when you're in rest with God, you know him. You don't fight his purposes. Jesus is in the garden and he leaves his disciples at one spot and he moves on a little further to pray. And he says, pray with me. And they sit at one side and they fell asleep. I think it was in the morning. They were tired. Then here he's praying here. He says, see, this is a prayer of rest again. Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done. Father, if you are willing, subscribe. Take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done. Speaking out of a place of rest. Prayer is an intimate relationship. Close relationship. We see that Jesus spoke from this relationship to the Father. It's a place of rest. We rest in him and his word and what he says he will do. We have come to know him in an intimate, personal way. Even when we are wrong, we accept the consequences because we know that it will still work out for our good. Everything God does is for our good. Even on our best day, we still don't know what is best for us because we can't see tomorrow. Only he can. In fact, We find rest in knowing that God knows the end from the beginning, that everything is working according to His plan. He's not confused. He knows what is happening. He has everything in control of everything. Every moment, nothing happens without His permission. His plans are perfect. He does not make mistakes. So I pray at this time that you will find the blessings of God. And God will bless you in this time, hearing His word and understanding who He is, finding this place of rest in Him, knowing that in Him everything that you've ever needed is found, and you don't have to worry because God got everything in control. It's important in this time to understand who God is. So God bless you at this time. May you find this secret place, this place of rest in Him, in His word. Philippians chapter 1 verse 3 to 6 says, I thank my God every time I remember you. I think so important. In all my prayers for all of you. I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. Your partnership. Be confident of this, that He who begun a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. He who begun a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. It's a good work. So God bless you. Find this place, find this rest in the knowledge of who He is. Amen.